District Board of Education meeting. It's Monday, August 14th, 2017. We opened the meeting at 4:30 with a closed session. We went into closed session, and so we're just reconvening at this point. With that, I'll turn it over to you, Dr. Buck, for the superintendent's report.
Yeah, thank you. Lots of good news this evening. As the summer draws to an end, we'd like to highlight a 2-week pilot program that wrapped up last week called Kickoff to Kindergarten. The camp was held, look at those. The camp was held from July 21st to August 11th at Garfield Elementary School, where 26 of the 36 kindergarten students met from 8:30 to 2:30 daily. The camp was designed to acclimate incoming Garfield kindergartners to the building, staff, their classmates, and learning procedures and expectations. Kickoff to Kindergarten was sponsored by United Way through their Reading into Success campaign, and lunches were provided to students through Horizons. We're very excited about the head start these students experienced prior to the beginning of the school year. Next item here, XQ Super Schools spent a week in Cedar Rapids in May filming Iowa Big for a segment in its national hour-long broadcast. So this is actually a pretty amazing thing. XQ has secured a 1-hour primetime slot from 7 to 8 p.m. on all 4 major networks for a commercial-free broadcast on Friday, September 8th. Iowa Big will be one of the featured schools held up as an example of the innovative approaches being taken to provide students with unique and academically challenging high school experiences. A viewing party will be held at New Bow Co. to celebrate Iowa Big. And this is one of those things in life where you make a funny connection. I'm reading along Sports Illustrated a couple weeks ago, and this thing pops open, and I'm like, holy cow, that's in Sports Illustrated. So, yeah, so this is a real thing. So we're excited about Iowa Big being highlighted in this way. So this summer, a group of Grantwood Griffins created I was reading a magazine. Is that what some of you are stuck on? Like the paper one in my hand? Yeah, so. This summer, a group of Grantwood Griffins created a video to share an important message about a virtue for which they have great passion. They remind us that kindness is contagious and that no act of kindness goes unnoticed.
If you ever find yourself stuck in the middle of the sea, I'll sail the world to find you. If you ever find yourself lost in the dark and you can't see, I'll be the light to guide you. Find out what we're made of when we are called to help our friends in need. You can count on me like 1, 2, 3, I'll be there. And I know when I need it, I can count on you like 4, 3, 2, and you'll be there. 'Cause that's what friends are supposed to do, oh yeah. Ooh, yeah, yeah. If you're tossing and you're turning and you just can't fall asleep, I'll sing a song beside you. And if you ever forget how much you really mean to me, every day I will remind you. Oh, find out what we're
What's we going back to? Kindness is contagious, right? So we're poised for an invigorating start to the 2017-18 school year.
The annual all-staff kickoff will be held at the Cedar Rapids Ice Arena on August 22nd. The first day of preschool is September 5th, but for everyone else, classes resume next week on August 23rd. We're looking forward to welcoming our students and teachers back, and we're excited to deliver on our promise of every learner future ready.
Awesome. Thank you, Dr. Buck.
Thank you.
And now we'll go into any board comments or reports. Mary?
We celebrate the alumni from our district, and I just wanted to send a shout out to 3 people that were associated with Amelia 2.0, which is a film that premiered in Cedar Rapids a week or so ago. The writer who came up with the concept and wrote the screenplay is a Jefferson High School grad. The director is a Kennedy High School grad, and the lead is a Washington High School grad, which we should feel all very proud of, that they are here in this community and sharing their work and their art.
Absolutely. What a great creative school district we have, and terrific alumni, so thank you for sharing. Other board comments? All right. I do want to mention that at our next board meeting, there is a board work session, so at the last half of that meeting, and we'll be talking about board goals. And so we'll be, I've asked Dr. Buck to work with the administrative team to get us thoughts that they have in advance about supporting the goals of the district and of Dr. Buck and his team from the board perspective, and so that will help us as we go into it. So I'll get those out to you as soon as we can in the next week here, and think about those before we get into our work session and craft our board goals for the coming school year. All right. With that, we'll go ahead and turn it over to communications, delegations, and petitions, and I have one person who has asked to speak before the board, and I just remind you that there is a 5-minute limit. Laurel Day, our board secretary, will help time that. If you approach the podium over here, just give us your name and your address, and if you're representing any particular group, let us know. So we have Chris Kronbaugh. Welcome.
Hi, I'll be brief. I won't hit 5 minutes.
Okay.
I just wanted to express concern and hopes that it's possible to think of maybe more, consider more alternatives to the elementary school plan. With the 13 elementary schools, I did the survey, and I'm interested in preserving some of these schools that have been part of our community for so long and that really serve different neighborhoods and are kind of really rich environments within their own neighborhoods. So really that's all I wanted to do was express. It wasn't really one of the options for me to respond when I did the survey. So I just wanted to express my interest in looking at more options. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kronbaugh. We appreciate your comments. All right, next we'll move into the consent agenda. Are there any comments from the board or questions? Nancy?
If I need a separate vote on BA 18073,
073.
the Area Substance Abuse Council, since I sit on that board.
Okay. All right. Any other comments or questions on any of the consent agenda items? Raphael?
Yep, BA 18051, and then just a clarification on BA 18063.
18051 is a school year meal price increase, is that correct? Okay.
Let's start with 63 really quickly. That one's a little bit easier. That would be just a quick FYI for our other board members. That one is just an agreement with the consultant. It was just kind of a funny typo with an address in New York where it had our district listed as purchaser. So I did get some clarification that apparently it's just a template that'll get corrected. So in case anyone else noticed that as well.
Thank you. And then back to BA 18051, the 17-18 school year meal price increase.
Right. So as part of meal price increase, kind of looked through and understood what the increase, what it meant for families and for students. And while not substantial, it's still an increase. And I know at one point, it's kind of related to it. We were looking at the community eligibility provision and kind of wanted to see if that ties into maybe at some point we'll kind of go more that way and kind of expand that, or if we even meet the criteria for that CEP yet or not. And then eventually we don't have to have conversations about increases for families and students.
Okay, very good. Well, first of all, community eligibility provision has very strict criteria. And we currently have 10 buildings that meet that criteria. And so we have continually, annually look to see if there are more options. We have several schools that have approached us about this, but unfortunately, we don't meet the criteria. But we will always look to see if it's something financially we can support. The piece about the community eligibility provision is that we hope that it will be a priority for for USDA and for our current president and Congress. So we hope that that's not something that's eliminated in the future. So if we get opportunities to have conversations with legislators and congressmen, then I think it's something that we need to let them know that it's a real critical piece to our community and provides a real service and maybe even eliminate barriers for families. The other piece that I would say is that the meal price increase, we are not really, the school district really doesn't have say over our meal price increase anymore. We submit all of the data into a state formula, and then it tells us what we need to charge for meal prices. And so if we're borderline, which we were this year, we needed to wait for the reimbursement to be posted by USDA, the federal government, and with that, we learned that we were required to raise our meal prices 5 cents.
Okay.
Okay.
So has there been any other increases? I was trying to think back, and I don't think I'd actually seen this last year. Do you recall when the last time there might have been one?
We have had to take small increases. I think the last one was 2 years ago,
Okay.
but we have actually worked very hard to look at other ways of reducing costs. The Cedar Rapids School District actually serves as an administrator for a very large buying group. So we have 31 districts in our buying group. So we look at all the types of efficiencies that we can. But once again, it is the state that sets the meal prices, so.
Okay. As far as communication with the increase, I know with everyone doing back to school, doing registration, I haven't even had, that was the first time that I had noticed it reading through the agenda.
Actually, it was because the late notice with the
Okay.
federal reimbursement. And so families will be notified. We've actually posted it now, that type of thing. But I don't ever recall the federal government being so late in posting
Okay.
reimbursement rates. So it really put us behind kind of the 8 ball on this situation.
Got it. All right. Thank you.
Those are great questions, though.
Thank you, Susie. Oh, Gary?
Yeah, as long as you're there, there is no increase in the reduced.
That is set by
Cost.
the federal government. That
Okay.
rate is set. So
Yeah.
30 cents for breakfast and 40 cents for lunch. So that rate has not changed for probably as long as I've been here, 28 years.
And we're close to 50% total population at that reduced rate, correct?
We are, I cannot speak, I didn't pull that data, but we're probably around the 48% free
Right.
and reduced
And-
rate.
And again, that will change as we go through the enrollment this year, too.
Correct. And then with that, there are certain buildings that are obviously higher than
Right.
others. So yeah, that rate is set by the federal government.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Susie. We appreciate your information. Any other comments or questions from the board about any consent agenda items? All right, seeing none, is there a motion to move forward on the consent agenda minus BA 18073 regarding Area Substance Abuse Council?
So moved.
Is there a second? Due to the personnel report, this will be a roll call vote.
Director Jacobo? Aye. Director Meisterling?
Aye.
Director Westerkamp?
Aye.
Director
Aye.
Director Jansen? Aye. Director Humbles?
Aye.
President Laverty?
Aye. Great, and then we will vote on BA 18073, the agreement with the Area Substance Abuse Council for data sharing as a separate item, and again, this will be a roll call vote.
It could be a voice
A
vote.
voice vote. Great. All of those in favor of approving BA 18073 signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Any abstentions?
Abstention.
Great. Thank you so much. The motion passes. Next, we'll move on to the learning and leadership area and our open education resources, and I'll turn it over to Karla Ries. Thank you.
Good evening. It is my pleasure to welcome you, or to welcome some guests that we have tonight, and thank you for allowing us the opportunity to talk about open educational resources and what they are and how we're implementing those within the Cedar Rapids Community School District. So I am going to introduce a few members of our Go Open team, and they'll explain what Go Open is during their presentation. So, and they will highlight our implementation and kind of the process that we've used for implementation in the district. So our secondary ELA facilitator is Erin Thompson, and she has led this work. And joining her tonight, and I'm going to do it in the order that they're talking to you as well. So Michelle Cruz is in the fuchsia color there, and she's one of our teacher librarians in the district. Sherry, who is in the second row, Sherry Shallstrom, who teaches 7th grade. Brianna Young, next to Erin there, teaches 8th grade, and Dr. Diane Kramer teaches 8th grade as well. So I'm going to welcome them up, and we'll get started.
Great.
Yep. And there you go.
Okay, thanks. So hashtag GoOpen was launched by the U.S. Department of Education in October 2015 to pull districts across the country together who had already started working on creating their own materials. Since then, the Department of Ed has developed an implementation guide, created a network of districts across the country, and they facilitate monthly national virtual meetings to share resources. Currently, we are the 3rd district in the state of Iowa to be part of the Go Open work. OERs, which stands for Open Educational Resources, allows us to move away from proprietary textbook companies. It allows us access to more current, high-quality, diverse resources. There is corporate support for this initiative from organizations like the Gates Foundation, the Hewlett Foundation, Amazon, and the United States Department of Education behind making sure that resources are available as OERs. It does not mean complete elimination of print resources, though. So districts have to find a balance between OERs and print resources to fit their environment.
So that is what Go Open is, and we signed on as a district to be a Go Open district in November of last year. And so as a result of that, the process that we've gone through, we went through and hired a team of representative teachers, ELA, as well as teacher librarians, and then started the work of learning. Because this was a new initiative, this was a new kind of concept, a new decision to go this direction. And part of what precipitated this is that we started the curriculum revision process like we typically do, and contacted all of our textbook companies and said, show us what you've got, let's see where we're moving. And only one textbook company is still producing a hardcover student textbook for secondary ELA. They have all gone away from hardcover student textbooks, and even that one student textbook that they produced was about this big and about that thick. So if you have ever seen any of our middle or high school kids lugging around an ELA textbook, that is quite significantly different from the textbook that they are hauling around. ELA, English Language Arts, apologize. So we hired a team of teachers and engaged in some professional learning. So a lot of learning around instructional design, what blended learning looks like. We had to do some learning around copyright issues because that's all part of this too, as well as digital tools and then the OER resources themselves because there are a lot of different places that those are housed, and so we need to learn about how those all work together. In addition to that, we revised our scope and sequence that we currently had in place for our middle school English Language Arts classes, and also revised our curricular units. And then during that time, we started the work of curation and evaluation and creation of resources. So one of the unique things about ELA is that it's typically not the subject area that districts start when they go open. And so there is a piece that we have to do on our own around the creation piece. So in addition to hiring the team that's doing that work, we also created a district advisory team. That district advisory team consists of folks that represent curriculum, technology, and professional learning. All of that has shifted, so we'll revise our advisory team. Also representatives from our ELL facilitator, our special ed facilitators, our PACT facilitators. We got everybody at the table to have conversations about how does this look as we continue to roll this out to other subject areas. In addition, we developed a district rubric for OER evaluation. So one of the things that we said is that not everything that's available as an openly licensed educational resource is going to be good quality that we want to have in our district. And so we went through and said, what are the important factors? What are the features that we want to see in the resources, and created that rubric. And then finally, we developed some district beliefs for the teachers and students around this work. We said, why are we going this way? What does this mean? And what do we hope that this translates to into the classroom? And so Sherry's going to tell you about those.
So at the very beginning of our work, we began creating goals, which we soon changed to beliefs to mirror the theory of action and how the theory of action was changing. The Go Open movement aligns with the district's beliefs as it continues to emphasize teaching and learning opportunities that foster equity, teaching motivation or innovation, and rigorous and relevant learning for all students. These are our Go Open district beliefs, and I will let you read through those. Next.
And I think you do have those in a print copy, so you have access to those. And so then I just wanted to lay out what is our implementation plan. So what does this look like? So like I said, we spent all of this last school year with this team of teachers and the advisory team kind of setting the groundwork and getting things in place. So for this school year, we have middle school English Language Arts Phase 1 implementation. So the teachers who have been part of this work for the last year will be the ones that implement it in their classrooms first. And part of that is we really want to make sure that we've got all the bells and whistles as they need to be, make sure that everything goes smoothly. And with that, we also have teachers who will be trying it out in a lot of different settings. And so that we will be able to see what technology do we need to have accessible to teachers in order for this to work well, what makes the most sense for students to be interacting collaboratively within that environment. It just gives us some time to test things out. So the teachers that you see here, these are going to be the ones that are implementing in their classrooms. Also this next year, we're going to also implement U.S. high school history, or high school U.S. history. Got those mixed up. So I haven't talked about history at all. And so part of that is because, like I said, ELA is unique in the fact that there is not like this prepackaged OER resource that's already available. We are kind of cobbling together from a lot of different resources to create the one that makes the most sense. However, there are a lot of already wonderfully put together OER resources for other subject areas. And so as we started talking about this as a curriculum team, we started exploring what are some of the other options out there. Well, come to find out, U.S. history really was in desperate need for a new textbook that made sense to be using in our classrooms. And there is a wonderful OER resource for a U.S. history textbook. And so we have decided that we are going to go ahead and implement that at the high school level. Also, 8th grade U.S. history. Again, wonderful resources available. But with the middle school one, we are not taking away their print textbooks. They do also have supplemental physical textbooks that they'll use. Also this school year, we're going to start to pull in our LA9 and LA10 teachers and start this prep work like we did this last year with middle school. Because one of the things that we know is that when we shift to full implementation in 18-19 with our middle schools, is that those kids are going to leave that classroom with a different experience, and we need to make sure that our LA9 and LA10 teachers are prepared to handle that when they come up to them that next year. And so they are going to start this work. And then also throughout this work, we have continued professional learning for everybody involved. So that is administrators, that's teacher leaders, as well as teachers themselves. And so we'll continue with that. So then next year, for the 18-19 school year, you see middle school goes full implementation. And we also kind of delayed full implementation to coincide with their tech refresh. So in 18-19, the middle schools have been slated for their technology upgrade. And so at that point in time, we will have been able to make a decent recommendation about this is what we're going to need in classrooms for this to be successful as we move out full scale. And so we'll be able to do that. High school ELA will do their phase 1 implementation. And then if you notice, we have 2 more histories coming on board also in 18-19, and along with that continued professional learning. So that's kind of the process, what it is and what we've done, but now we're going to show you what it looks like.
And all of that will be supported with, so like Erin said earlier, it's not a complete elimination of print resources, so it's not as if our students will have no print text in their hands. It's selecting carefully what they do have.
Yeah, no, and to follow up with what she just said too, it's really exciting because it allows us as educators to really custom tailor to exactly what our students need, which is awesome. So I've got a couple screenshots I want to show you to kind of talk through what this is going to look like on sort of the ground level. So what you see first, this is a screenshot of the student view. So as soon as they're accessing this course, all of these OER materials integrate seamlessly with the technology and programming that we've already been implementing in schools. It's really easy to access and upload these resources onto Office 365, which all students have access to. Them being able to download these resources, write right on them, annotate the text themselves is a lot more accessible because it can't be doodling in a textbook that is going to be used over and over again, so that's really exciting for us. It's also easy to access the information that we want the students to have as well. So here we even can show the students the scope and sequence. Where are we going with this? What are you going to learn when this is all said and done? Here's how the resources connect. And if you notice, they have access to both their modules, which is I'll go to in just a minute, and then Office 365 goes right into Canvas, which is the learner management system that we are already using. How do I go to the next one? Technology. Okay, I know I'm really convincing you of my ability to use tech here. So this is what a sample module will look like for students. This can be completely custom tailored by the teacher themselves and based on their preferences and the needs of their students. So I can categorize them in ways that make sense to my kids, but other teachers can build their course the way that's helpful for them, and we are in the process of building a shell and uploading resources in for educators so they can import it into their own classes. They can publish what they feel their students need. They can adapt to what their students need. This is excellent for differentiating for English language learners and also for special ed students, so we can really tailor not only texts but resources that we're finding and creating to the exact needs that the students have. Oops. And then lastly, oh, and I went too far. There it is. And this is something that only teachers would necessarily have access to. So much like the cloud, we can upload all of our documents right into Canvas. And again, that just allows teachers to really custom tailor what we're sharing with students and really meet the needs of the kids that we have right in front of us in our classroom. So I'm really excited about this work, and I appreciate you letting us share it. And Diane has her individual, more the lesson level that she's going to share it with you guys.
All right. As Erin mentioned earlier, since ELA is not typically a course that is already designed and available in the OER platform, we have had to do some creating of our own resources and lessons. This is an example of a multi-day student module developed in the OER Commons, and it's a resource that we have access to through the Iowa AEA PD Online. And this could also be imported into our Master Canvas course, and this would be an example of what it looks like in a self-directed module for students. So this is what it looks like. So last year, we had several teachers that developed these lessons and went into the OER Commons. So you can kind of see what that looks like. This is an example of a lesson for 8th grade literacy that I prepared for 8th grade lit students. And you can see the standard up there in the corner. It's got the 8.4, determine the meaning and words and phrases as they're used in the text. So that's the standard. And then, of course, it's got like the abstract where it explains what, what it's going to be about, what the lesson is going to entail. So that kind of shows you, that's what it looks like to someone who pulls it up in the OER Commons, okay? The next one, if I can get this to move here. Yeah, there we go. Okay, and this is an example of the student view, what the students will see. So this is really nice because it works very well in a blended learning environment. And so students can work on this, individually, which is really nice. So there's direct instruction involved, and also you've got that individual instruction so that we can meet students where they are. And like I said, this is just a lesson on irony. So kind of takes you through, and I won't go through the whole lesson because it's long. I've got videos and I've got discussions and writing. I've also got music in there too. So, but just so you can, I wanted you to see what it looks like, what this looks like from the student view. So you can click on preview and preview the student view. So, okay. And does anybody have any questions on that portion? And then I'll let Erin maybe come back up for any other questions. Any questions on that? Okay. Yes.
So, availability of computers in the classroom to download this information and work on it, and students at home? Is that something you're gonna cover later, or?
So, well, we can cover it. I'll invite Erin up with me. One of the things, so as Erin said, they are implementing this year in a variety of different environments. So some of them, and she can probably tell you exactly which ones, but some of them have devices in their classroom. Some of them will have to maybe go to the computer lab, schedule the computer lab in the building. Some of them may have access to a cart. What are the other?
So
Did I miss one?
we have a couple teachers who have one-to-one devices in their classrooms because they had written grants, and so they have devices. We have a variety of devices even on those grants. So we have some Chromebooks, we have some laptops, we have a lot of different things. And then we have some teachers who are going to be, they are assigned 5 laptops in their classroom at all times. And then at sometimes they can get a full set. So we'll see how he interacts with those 5 on a daily basis. But all of these resources are printable as well. And one of the things with shifting the resources from buying an actual textbook as well as then the online resources is that now we have saved some money that we can run some of those print copies from the district office. So if we say, here is a mentor text that we want to use for this LA unit, we want everybody to have a copy of that mentor text, well, that's something that I can have printed here, sent out to the building so that everybody still has a hard copy. And one of the things as we started this work in the conversations that we had, I asked the teachers, I was like, how many of you are actually sending a textbook home with kids right now? And they're not. I think I had like 2 teachers of like all my middle school ELA teachers who were sending an actual textbook home because they're huge. They're huge, huge books, and they're not student friendly to be sending home. And so in essence, like I know that the technology at home is an interesting situation, but Canvas is accessible via smartphones and some of those other resources as well.
And as we continue to also like build our technology infrastructure, so for example, Wi-Fi access in our parking lots, provides a little more accessibility for students as well. So on the weekend, they could come and, and I think the city is doing some things to bump up their Wi-Fi access, like in parks and things like that as well, that will support this work as well. Holly can talk about the technology.
So as
a
we
little better
began
than I
this
do.
conversation, one of the important platforms
You want
was
to use
that-
the microphone,
Yes,
Holly?
sorry.
Thanks, no
One
problem.
of the important platforms was that Go Open is not associated strictly with one-to-one. They really do look at a lot of environments. And in our environment specifically, it was how can we test out, how can we see what we want, and then how can we build that capacity within our teachers so that as we do have more access, then we have that ability to go forward. But additionally, looking at the resources that we have so that as we go forward, what kind of opportunities are we providing with students? If they don't have internet at home and we're start to go forward, do we have things in place so that they can be downloaded onto devices and then sent off so that they can still do their work even if they don't have the internet at home? So that's where we're in that capacity building and really looking, as we implement the tools, thinking forward. And that's in Aaron's rubric, it's in those classrooms. So there's just a lot of conversations that are continuing to happen, arching out forward. What do we have access to now, but how are we also thinking forward?
Other questions? Gary?
A couple. What's the alignment with the Iowa Core with this material?
We can both talk about that a little bit. It's a complete 100% aligned. So everything, we have district curriculum, or we have curriculum that we have written. So we've taken all of the Iowa Core standards and we've chunked those into units that occur in 6th grade, 7th grade, and so on. All of the resources will support the instruction of those standards. So the resources are not the curriculum, the standards are. All of these resources will support that. So I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
How many districts are implementing this?
We are the 3rd in Iowa. Council Bluffs?
There was another one that got added.
Okay.
Union Community School District got added too. So we are only 4 in the state of Iowa.
You know, this is exactly the direction this board wants our district to take, and it's complementary of the magnet schools, the choice, making use of current technology. So we applaud you for doing this and putting the work in to make this a successful implementation. So thank you very much.
Yeah, in addition to what Mary said, I was kind of thinking the same thing as far as direction and kind of even one step beyond. I understand what the goals are for 17, 18, then 18, 19. What would the future right now, what would your ideal scenario look like? I mean, I don't expect that we're going to be a completely, paperless, bookless district, one-to-one, but, what could that future landscape look like?
Well, I think it can look like whatever we want it to be, and I don't know that we have I think as technology develops and as these resources develop, I think they're only going to explode. So we spend a good amount of money on physical resources for kids. I think that money can be shifted. So a prime example with this, the amount of money we would normally spend on a middle school textbook adoption, so to speak, is a fair chunk of change. And then it's like buying a car, kind of. As soon as we have it, it depreciates it, and it's almost out of date. So what this does for our kids is it allows our kids to have constant access to up-to-date resources, which then that's a huge equity issue for our students as well. So if something, right now our current resources are somewhat dated, and or you buy a textbook and you buy a subscription, an online subscription for that textbook. So the textbook is maybe still usable in 5-7 years, but your online subscription has expired. So then you lose access to all of that. We will not lose access to anything. So not really answering your question, but so a vision would be that every time we look at buying or use any sort of instructional resource that will support our teachers, to support our kids, we would want to look through this lens because they will stay current for our kids, and they will be as aligned. So any changes in the core, the resources will change quickly. We wouldn't have to wait 5 or 7 years to update.
One of the other advantages, and it's tied to this, and you saw it in a couple of those examples that were on the screen, it really does reinforce to teachers that we're driving them to the standards. So what we want taught is the standards. The textbook is a tool for that. Online resources are a tool for that, as opposed to here's the textbook I'm handed, and so I'm teaching the textbook. That's not. So how do we drive them back to the standards conversation?
Yeah.
And you saw that in a couple of the lesson examples. And as a former science teacher, teaching that genetics unit, and you'll probably talk about Mendelian genetics as sort of the history of genetics, but also what is happening now in the moment related to genetics and driving into that conversation, as opposed to what the textbook might say about a 5 or 6 year old example of where we are in the genetics conversation or whatever the topic area might be. So I think, vision casting that out, it's exciting. This conversation's been underway nationally for a long time, but the tech is finally catching up. So I think we're situated in a great spot, innovation.
So I do want to brag a little bit before, like, I turn the mic over, so if that's okay. They have done an amazing job. You will come in, you will see them hunkered down in one of the conference rooms, and they will all have their devices up, and they will be looking at things. We, as in Holly and Aaron, and a couple of our teachers, and I'm losing their names right at the moment, and I apologize. Yeah. Brianna and Michael Moore are presenting at iNicole, which is a national conference. So we've submitted to present nationally. It was accepted, and the four of them will be traveling to Florida in October to present.
And like an awesome time slot. We got put on the second full day, like right before lunch. So everybody will still be there.
As well as Aaron is it is good. And Aaron is co-presenting at a state conference as well with somebody from Council Bluffs.
Josh Allen from Lewis Central has been working very closely.
Awesome. So one question, and I think, I agree with Mary, the innovation and things, we definitely applaud that. Thinking about it in terms of the finances, looking to extrapolating this out. So you're talking about one textbook, curriculum rollout costs a bunch of money. What's a bunch of money?
Okay.
And when we extrapolate that to how many courses? I'm looking at Steve Graham here going,
Steve
and I'm
loves
thinking
this.
about, and what fund does that come out of? And then you talked about, well, we can use that money for some other things, which of course in these incredibly tight budget times where we're underfunded at the state level and more and more requirements, what can we really use those savings for? Because we have all kinds of priorities to get that technology in the kids' hands so that they can use it at home and have meaningful, experiences as we move to all these innovative programs.
So I can give you some kind of ballpark numbers. I would say that if we were to have purchased a middle school ELA textbook, and we often do not purchase textbooks for every single student, but we'll purchase class sets and some extra, of course. We would probably be looking around $400,000 to $500,000 just for middle school ELA. That would not have been out of the ballpark because we would have, everything comes with a technology component, so there's the online subscription pieces. Every student would have had a subscription, even though they maybe would not have had a physical textbook. So it's a fair amount. That's a lot of money to me. So most people maybe, yeah. So what we've done. So this is not without cost, obviously, but we've purchased their time. So not wanting them out of instruction, we have put them on like a short-term contract. They've worked nights, many nights. They've worked.
3 weeks this summer.
Yep, they've worked 3 weeks over the summer. They've put in a lot of hours, so we pay them for that. So that is a piece of that. There are also some professional learning components that we need to support financially. So that's a piece of that. And we did not purchase devices. So we have not done that because we need to collect the data on how it works in our current system. The other piece is printing. So that actually gets more expensive than you think. So any resources that we might need printed, we would purchase that for. Buildings could not afford to do that out of a building budget. We would do that from a district. And then there are sometimes still physical copies of maybe a certain novel or something that we may want all students to have that we would purchase. But so we don't have like a total cost expenditure yet at this point, but easily half, if not less.
And then that comes out, the textbooks come out of which fund, Steve? Instructional support levy, okay. And so if we have those savings, what else can we use for those funds?
Anything related to instruction?
Anything related to instruction, which is the heart and soul, really, of what we're about. So, okay, great. That's what I need to know. Other questions, Keith?
What are we in doing, you mentioned the city, to communicate with the city or other providers to make Wi-Fi more available, like libraries?
We have not taken that role on to work with the city to up the Wi-Fi access, but I don't know if technology.
I can help.
Okay.
So we are in the process of updating our technology plan, and we intend to have a revised plan in front of the board in the next 6 months or so. One of the components of that process is we've been meeting with a local internet provider in town and just talking and doing a little bit of dreaming about what it could mean to give different and better accessibility to all of our students in the city. So we're taking that into consideration as part of the process in our tech plan. And also part of the tech plan is, are there going to be opportunities in models like this to capture and get closer to a one-to-one type environment for our kids when appropriate? I would also say this, though, like in the blended learning classrooms that I've had a chance to visit, you don't necessarily need a device for every student to change the experience in the classroom to the betterment of the kids. So a lot of those classrooms I visited at Nixon and Viola, in many cases they didn't have a device per student, but they had different stations and different work expectations within that and around that room. So I hear a lot of this is exploring what works best for kids and the staff that work with them, and then trying to deliver on that through our tech plan, so, and instructional support.
Great. Gary, you had a question?
Well, it kind of fits in, I think, directly with that conversation. And a number of years ago, when we started the collaborating with the district, with the city and county with laying the fiber through our buildings, I thought there was some discussion of what the capacity would be to turn our buildings into hotspots themselves, that you could put, I don't know the tech, but rebroadcasting that signal out and so on. And so you start drawing circles around all of our schools that go out a couple of miles. You have a pretty good coverage of the city. So it sounds like, I'm just wondering as we go back and revisit that technology plan, that it might be something that we look at. And the other is just a compliment to, this is absolutely the direction that we should be going. As I read comments on the internet, educationally, with districts that have so outdated printed material, because it is so costly that it just, how do you teach 21st century learning with 1940, written? And that the reality is there are districts around the country that are actually dealing with that old. So, and I think also legislatively we need to promote to where we are best using our funds and resources and why we need more in order to move forward.
Any other questions or comments, Keith?
Other disciplines? Math?
Eventually, as we begin to review materials and learn more about this, anytime that we look at an adoption, so for example, even world language, we have, that might be a possibility for next year even, this will be one of the considerations. Making sure that it is what meets the needs of our students, and that is first and foremost. So if it's a print book, then we'll go with a print book. If it's this, we'll use this.
Great. Anything else? Well, we want to thank you all for your hard work on this. Thanks. It was a great presentation. We appreciate all the work that's been put into this, and it's certainly one of those things I think will benefit all of our students. And I'm excited to see staff, teachers getting, involved in this and a positive outcome, hopefully, for all of us. So thank you again so much. Appreciate it. And with that, we're at the end of our agenda. So just to remind the board that you have your calendar. There's a lot of activity coming up here. Dr. Buck, we appreciate your Friday notes. And with that, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you. Okay.